Alright, so the movie Insurgent is the sequel to Divergent, and I'll be honest with you, it took me about 7 takes to get that out. It's just kind of a tongue twister. Insurgent, Divergent, I don't know why, it just makes my head hurt. But anyway, talking about the original movie, Divergent, that was one of those movies I waited a very, very long time to watch, and then one late night, it was raining out, me and my lady friend Danielle were eating frozen pizza, and she's like, do you want to watch this movie? And then she made me watch that movie, and after it was over, I didn't hate myself for watching it. I thought it was better than I expected. So anyway, with all that said, let's talk about the movie Insurgent. Hey there guys, how are you? By the way, a quick heads up, the best thing about this video will be the t-shirt I'm wearing right here. Put the cookie down! So what is the movie Insurgent all about? Well, you have the character of Triss, played by Shailene Woodley, and she has to stop the evil alliance and save all of society. It's simple enough. Now let's just talk about the movie. Now when it comes to actress Shailene Woodley, I like her as a young actress. I really buy into her. I think she has a lot of talent, and I like the majority of the roles that she's played. But as the character of Triss, I think she fits overall, but my biggest problem in this movie is when she gets a haircut. I know, that sounds really petty, but for the first 10 minutes after her haircut, this is the only thing that kept running through my mind. But eventually that thought faded away, and I just seen Shailene Woodley once again. Anyway, in this movie she plays the badass ultimate Divergent, and sometimes her character's a little bit too badass. You almost can't buy into some of the action sequences that she's in. For example, everything just looks overly polished when she's doing something cool or a badass punch. It just looks like she's dangling on 5 wires, there's a whole bunch of CGI work going on, and you just don't feel like Shailene Woodley, the actress, is performing anything that's happening on that screen. Yeah, at some points in this movie, it's almost like they wanted to make the character of Triss, Neo from The Matrix, and I just wasn't really buying into it. Sometimes it's just a little too overdone. But in some other sequences, for example, there's one sequence that takes place on this train. I thought it was one of the best fight action scenes in the entire movie because it didn't feel over-polished or overdone, it felt subtle. And I was like, this movie needs more of that. And by the way, if you haven't seen the movie yet, you're not going to know what I'm talking about, and this isn't a spoiler. But speaking of that train sequence scene, you have the character of Courtney, who plays the evil henchman in this movie, and he's kind of a one-dimensional type character. There's not really much to him. You want there to be more, but there just isn't. But the thing I'm talking about is when he's chasing down this train, the good guys hop on the train, they take off 500 feet down the tracks, and keep in mind, this is a freight train. It's made out of steel and metal. You're not gonna shoot bullets through it. Even though the train's 500 feet down the tracks and he's chasing it and they get away, he still takes out his gun, his little pistol, and shoots at it 2 times. And it was just little things like that throughout this movie where you go, why would you do that? Now let's get back to talking about one-dimensional characters. And the villain of this movie is played by Kate Winslet. And I like Kate Winslet. One of my favorite scenes of all time was with her and Leo in a car on the Titanic. It was a foggy scene, very romantic, very intimate, and as a young guy, well, I really like that. And plus the other scene where Jack got to draw her for 10 cents. Yeah, I'd pay $1 to draw her. And it'd just be like a stick figure with a big head. But as far as her character goes in this movie, it's almost like they didn't have anything for her to do at all. In every single scene that she's in, she's just in a room with computers staring at something. That's what she does this entire movie. And you gotta ask yourself, as the villain, the main focus point of this movie, where all the hate's supposed to go, that's all they had for her to do. And it seemed a little bit lazy to me and uncreative. And it's things like that throughout this movie that just become frustrating over time because there's a lot of talent in this movie and you just wish that the script gave them more to do. But that's not to say that there weren't some redeeming qualities about this movie. First of all, I think the movie was well directed, the cinematography looked really good, and I really appreciated the lack of shaky cam in this movie because most movies nowadays, they gotta shake everything. And I guess they think that's stylistic, or in my opinion, it's just to hide a whole bunch of shit that they didn't really comprehend how to do on the set. But in this movie, they give you nice wide shots. I liked the way things looked. It was bright, it was vivid at times, and it was just fun to look at. But overall, my biggest problem with this movie, besides the one-dimensional characters, was the plot to the movie and how convoluted the movie tried to make it. Now, this isn't a complicated plot whatsoever. You have the good guys. They need to go into the city to kill the bad guys. That's the basic summary of this plot. But along the way, there's so many subplots that as a viewer, you're like, wait, what's happening? How did we get here? Why does this matter? And it's forgotten 10 minutes later anyway, so none of it really matters. Now, after the movie Insurgent was over, my lady friend Danielle said the ending of the movie tried to be too much like the movie Inception. And I thought about it for a second, and I was like, you know what? You make a very good, valid point. And I gave her a high five. because I was proud of her that day. Okay, so a quick heads up, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I have to dive into a few details that happened during the climax of this movie to really express my opinion. So no spoilers, I'm not really giving anything away here, and if you've seen the trailer, you've already seen clips of what I'm talking about. So during the third act of this movie, they take the character of Tris, they put her in a simulator where she basically has to get tested. Things are turning and twisting all weird and crazy, buildings are crumbling, and at times it almost felt like Inception 2.0, but with Shailene Woodley in it. And after the movie was over, I came home and did some research, and it turns out that the book for this movie came out 1 year after Inception was released in theaters. Yeah, the more I think about it, it's almost too similar, because in the movie Inception, your worst fears, when you focus too much on them, will become a reality. And that's the same thing that happens in the movie Insurgent. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with it. Took some creative inspiration from Inception. So here are my final flicking thoughts on the movie Insurgent. Overall, this is a competent, well put together, well filmed movie, and at times it really does have some interesting action sequences. But for me personally, I actually preferred the first movie, Divergent, to this one because I thought the story was a little bit better, and in this movie, it almost feels like characters are randomly going from place to place, they throw in some subplots that you don't really care about, and there's a lot of convenient things that happen just to progress the plot along, and most of the characters just feel a little bit too one-dimensional. I didn't hate the movie, at times I enjoyed looking at it and watching it, and I think some of the actors did give some good performances when the script allowed them to, so overall, I'm going to give the movie Insurgent a C. So anyway guys, that's my take on this movie. Now here's my question to you, and let me know down below if you've seen the movie. What did you think about it? Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, make sure you check out my last movie review. Link down below. I'll see you guys next time.